How's everybody doing today? This is the Storm Pal, and I'm here for another installment of DBZ Talks, here today to talk about something that At The Project Core tweeted me on Twitter, of course the only place for tweets of such to be tweeted. But anyway, he wanted to know if GT is canon or not canon, basically wondering my thoughts on the whole situation. Now, this is kind of a controversy in the Dragon Ball community, and I'm here to tackle this with actually using logic instead of just saying, GT's gay, it's not canon, blah. And we're actually going to think about this logically and have a little bit of maturity in the situation. Nah, just kidding, we're just going to talk about a bunch of stupid stuff. Anyhoozle, a lot of people will automatically tell you that GT is not canon just because it is not part of the manga, and that there's no legitimate official manga for GT, whereas there's been manga made by Akira Toriyama from the beginning of Dragon Ball to the end of Dragon Ball Z. And while that is very true, actually, that there is no manga for GT, does that necessarily mean that it's any less canon than the other two series, or that Akira Toriyama did not have any kind of say in it? Akira Toriyama definitely did have a say in GT. In the ending credits of every episode of Dragon Ball GT, he's actually credited as the author. Now, while there's a little bit of a difference between author, scriptwriter, and all that stuff, that's a little irrelevant right now. He helped out a lot in the production of GT, and according from what I've read, he actually did the same process in GT that he did while they were making the animes for Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. He was responsible for a lot of stuff, like the logo for GT. He designed a lot of the character appearances for GT. He did a lot of concept art for GT, so he basically came up with a lot of these ideas on his own from what I've read. Now, while he may not have had quite as much of a say in what happened because of all of this stuff, how there wasn't a manga, the thing is that he maybe didn't come up with the complete storyline like he did in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but he did come up with a lot of things and basically handed it off to some other people to kind of finalize it, tweak it, and make the exact storyline for it. But it's not like he didn't like what they did. Again, from everything that I've read, he seems to really have liked GT. So he had a lot of involvement in GT, but it wasn't quite as much involvement as it was in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. He basically didn't come up with the exact storyline for this, and that's about it, but he did come up with a lot of it. One other point that a lot of people like to bring up is that GT has a lot of plot holes and inconsistencies and blah blah blah, and not only does that make them dislike the series more, but it also makes them consider it to be less canon. But one thing that they don't realize is that, at least according to the Dragon Ball Wiki, Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball both had more plot consistencies than GT, meaning that GT actually had less plot holes than Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. But one thing to take into consideration on that point is that GT was only 64 episodes long, while Dragon Ball Z was 291, and Dragon Ball was 153. So, it is kind of harder to have that many plot holes in 64 episodes. And that's a lot of the knowledge that I have to put on this situation for right now. And as for my answer, whether or not I think it's canon, I honestly kind of think it depends. If you're someone who reads the manga and doesn't really watch the anime, then of course GT is absolutely not canon. But honestly, if you go by the anime and you say that certain things that happened only in the Dragon Ball Z anime were canon, then you're kind of stupid for saying that GT isn't canon. Basically what I'm saying is that if you think Garlic Jr. and things like that are canon, but GT isn't, then you're stupid. Well, maybe that might have offended people, but you need to reassess your logic and stuff. Is that a less offensive way to put it? Okay, alright, cool. That's a less offensive way to put it, apparently. It really all depends on how you look at it. If you're one of those people who thinks that if it didn't come straight out of Akira Toriyama's hand, then it's not canon, then you know what? GT probably wasn't canon to you. But like I said, if you're gonna go ahead and call things like Garlic Jr. or maybe some of the movies and OVAs canon, then you should probably call GT canon. And one other thing, why does it matter if it was canon or not? I mean, it happened, and GT is the end of Dragon Ball Z and all that stuff anyway, so really how does it matter about whether or not it was canon? I mean, it's not like GT changes how Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z work. So if you don't think GT is canon and you don't like GT, you don't have to watch it. There's really no sequels to GT, so it's not like you can even argue, oh, well, I have to watch GT so that way I can get this new Dragon Ball thing. You don't. If you don't like GT, then don't watch it. And if you don't consider it canon, then don't consider it canon. But all I know is that Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is freaking awesome, and it would absolutely kill me to find out that he is just nothing more than a thought in my imagination. But anyway, I hope that that sort of answered your guys' questions on my feelings towards GT being canon or not, even though I did kind of ride the fence on this one. But anyway, for now, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Hope you have a nice day, and goodbye!